Hey everyone, so it's finally time for my spring renovation. In this video, I'll show you all the steps I do when I do a renovation, and I'll explain while I'm doing the steps why I'm doing it, so you can just easily follow along, and then you can apply the same method when you're doing your renovations. Alright, so let's just get going. I am super excited to get going finally. So I just want to start. But first, let's just talk quickly about, is spring the best time to do a renovation? And it's really not. I mean, springtime, the temperatures in the soil aren't really warm enough yet. The grass has just come out of dormancy, so you really don't want to stress it too much. So then you might ask, why are you doing it during the spring? But I mean, if you just take a look behind me, this is how my lawn is looking coming out from winter. We had a really harsh winter in Sweden, and I had some drainage issues, so I had a lot of snow mold, so a lot of it died off. And I mean, I can't just leave it like this until fall, because normally fall is the better option. You don't have as much weed pressure, the temperatures, the soil temperatures are higher, you have more moisture in the air, so you get a lot of natural help. But again, my lawn looks terrible, so I don't really want to wait and have it look like this until fall, so I'm doing it in the spring. All right, so let's just get going with the first step. And the first step is to mow everything short. Now, I don't really have that much grass to mow, but I have some. So I'm gonna mow it as short as I can, because that will help all the grass seeds to fall between the blades. If you're doing any leveling, it's easier to level off with all the topsoil or sand or whatever you're leveling off with. And it will also stunt the existing grass a bit. If you scalp it really low, it will grow a bit slower for the next coming weeks, and we kind of want that because we want the new seedlings to have a chance to actually germinate. So we'll start off by just mowing everything really short, and then we'll move on to step 2. And I'm just using my Gardena manual reel mower, and I've set it on the lowest setting possible. It's, I think, 12 millimeters, and that's as low as it gets. And make sure you collect the grass clippings. You don't want the grass clippings to be on top of the lawn. All right, so I'm done mowing the entire lawn. I've scalped it, and now it looks even worse than it did before. But hopefully in a few weeks it will look better. So the second step is to scarify, and make sure you use the Scarify attachment and not this one. This is for power raking, so this won't create the grooves you need when you reseed. This will kind of just scrape on top of the lawn, getting rid of debris and stuff. But for this step, what I want to make these grooves. After you have these grooves and you put down some seed, the seeds will fall into those grooves, and it will give it a better bed for germination. So scarifying in this instance is not for getting rid of thatch or aerating or anything like that. It is just to kind of cultivate the soil a bit, make it a better bed for the seeds. All right, so now let's get to scarifying the entire lawn. And I'm just gonna use it on the lowest setting because I want it to go deep enough to make the grooves. But if you're unsure what setting to use, always start with the highest one and then lower it gradually until you get to the point you want it to be. All right, so I've done one pass. On a couple of spots I've done 2 passes. So I thought I'll just show you the difference, how it looks. All right, so this is how one pass looks like. And these grooves, this is what we're after. It's gonna make an awesome seed bed for when we throw down the seeds. And this is how 2 passes look. I mean, it looks way worse. And in some areas where I barely have any grass, it looks like this, but I mean, I'm not too worried about it. It looked horrible before. It looks horrible after, but hopefully in a little while it will look better. So I'm just gonna continue on with this and just do 2 passes. Now normally the second pass I wouldn't do it 90 degrees because it slows down recovery time, but I don't have that much grass to recover, so I don't really care at this point. I'm just gonna do 2 passes, I don't really care. All right, so let's continue on and make sure we cover the entire lawn with 2 passes, and then we'll move on to the third step. All right, so I'm done with the scarifying. I couldn't make double passes everywhere because the machine kept dying. I'm not sure what's up with it. I mean, I've used it regularly for several years. I lent it out to neighbors, they use it every year. So maybe it's just time to get a new one. But let me show you how it looks at least. So over here I did double passes, but when I came to this part, it just kept dying off. And I wanted to make sure I can do one pass in the front, so I just left it as it is. I'd rather have one pass than no pass, so I just moved on to the front. So let me show you the front actually. But before we do move on to the front, I need to warn you, it's looking absolutely horrible. I had some drainage issues there. I had issues with snow mold, so I had to dig out a trench because the sub layer was just horrible. It was full of sand and stone stuff, and it didn't let water through for some reason. So I just dug a trench, replaced all that stuff with good soil, and I had machines and everything here, and they went all over the front lawn, and it kind of destroyed everything. So I'm just warning you. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, let's have a look. All right, so this is the front, and as you can see, it's looking horrible. This is the part where I dug out everything, and the machines came in over there, and they kind of just destroyed everything. So it's looking absolutely horrible. But even though it looks horrible right now, I bet you I can make it look green again soon enough. Make my lawn green again. So now we can move on to the next step, but I'm gonna do that tomorrow. It's getting late, and that's one other important point I want to make. Renovation is hard work. You don't have to do everything all at once. I'm doing the scarification right now. I dug the trench the other day. I mean, still, it's a lot of work, and I've been kind of stressed about it since I have my regular work to deal with, but just spread it out. So what if you can't do all the steps in the same day? Just spread it out, otherwise you're gonna get sick of it and you're never gonna renovate again. Especially if you have a bigger lawn. I mean, my lawn is only, what, 190 square meters, so it's not that big, but it's still a lot of work. Doing a full renovation would take about 6-7 hours if you're doing every step that I'm doing. So just spread that out. All right, so next step tomorrow is that I have rented a hollow core aerator. So I'm gonna aerate everything. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, so it's the next day and I've rented a hollow core aerator. So I'm gonna aerate the entire lawn. And this step isn't mandatory, you don't need to do this, but it's always nice to hollow core aerate the lawn because it gives space for the roots to grow. And if you're trying to amend the soil like I'm doing, since I have drainage issues, I bought a lot of cow manure, chicken manure, all that compost, nice stuff to kind of amend the soil. So that's why I want to take out cores and fill those cores with the compost. So that's why I'm doing it, but this step you can skip it if you want. And also I'm not doing any leveling at all. You could add a step where you level the lawn, but my lawn is level enough and I have a lot of sand and I want to try to sand level it later on. And right now the lawn is looking terrible, so I don't feel like I need to level it off right now. Back to the point that I made about you don't have to do everything at once. So leveling I'll save for later. So right now let's just hollow core aerate the lawn and then we'll continue on to the next step. And of course I forgot to press record, so I didn't record any of this. But I still have some left to do, so I'll try to remember to press record next time. So let me just show you all the holes. As you can see, I punched thousands of holes everywhere. So now if I put compost or seeds on the lawn, it's going to give it a nice space to germinate. And if you're mending the soil, the compost or sand or whatever you're using will fill up those holes and it will get into the soil easier. Now there is an option to hollow core aerate first and then scarify second. Then you scarify over all of the cores and you don't have to pick them up. So I know some people that do it that way. For me, I like to pick up the cores because I'm trying to amend the soil, so I'm trying to switch it out. I'm trying to get rid of some of the thatch. So I'll be picking up all of these. All right, let's continue on. And this time I promise I'm gonna press record. So I'm done hollow core aerating the entire lawn. If you live north of Stockholm and you want to rent one in Täby, where I did. Awesome guy, also a lawn nerd, and I stood there talking for him for a long time because it was just so nice to talk to a fellow lawn nerd like me. So I can highly recommend renting from that guy. All right, so now I'm just gonna pick up all the cores and then we'll move on to the next step. You know what, actually, since I do hate raking and the cores have been out on the lawn for a while in the sun, so they're pretty dry and pretty light. So I'm wondering if the Gardenia grass and leaf collector might be able to pick this up. So I'm gonna just give it a go. Anything rather than raking manually. It sucks. So let me just try that. Alright, so that didn't work as well as I would have hoped. It kept just pushing all the plugs in front of it, but at least then it collected most of the plugs around the edges. So now I can just focus my raking on around those areas. But yeah, it helped a bit. Would I buy one of these just for that? No, I wouldn't. But if you have one laying around, then you could use it. I'm just gonna pick up the rest of the plugs and then we'll move on. Alright, so I've taken out all the cores. Well, there's some cores still left, and it doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need to get 100% of the cores away. I mean, if there's a few cores here and there, who cares? So now it's time to spread the seeds, and I've pre-germinated all the seeds, and I'll put a link to that video, how you pre-germinate the seeds. If you're doing it for the first time like I did, there are a couple of things you need to think about, and if I were to do it again, there are some things I would have done differently, but I'll discuss that in that video. So go watch that video if you want to see how I pre-germinate the seeds. But for now, I'm just going to spread everything, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is to put compost on it all. So first I need to get the seeds out, and for my backyard I'm just going to put down ryegrass and actually some creeping red fescue. I've normally just had ryegrass, but I want to introduce some fescue into it. And on the side strip and on the front where I've had the most issues with drainage and with grass dying off to snow mold, I'm actually going to use the new grass seeds, Kentucky Bluegrass Jumpstart. It's a new grass seed for me. I've never tried it before. They say it germinates in 8 days, and that's why I chose it, because I'm really not a patient guy. But besides that, I don't want to say to people that they can't use the lawn for 2 or 3 months for me to wait for the Kentucky Bluegrass to germinate and establish. So that's why I normally don't use Kentucky Bluegrass. I like the grass type, but it just takes too long. It's like watching paint dry. It takes forever to germinate. But if you pre-germinate it, maybe you can shave off some of that time, so maybe then it's fine. All right, enough talk. So I'm gonna spread the seeds now, and in case you're wondering why I'm spreading it like this, it's because I pre-germinated it and it started sprouting too early in the bag. So, and it's too wet, I can't put it in the handheld spreader. And of course the handle of my drop spreader broke, so that's why I'm holding it like this and spreading, moving the wheel by hand. So it is a handheld spreader, so to say. But it is what it is, it works. All right, so I'll just start spreading some seeds and then we'll move on. All right, that's the fescue down. Now I just need to put out the ryegrass as well. So I'm gonna take it out from the bag. I mean, as you can see, these have pre-germinated for too long. They are starting to grow out of the bag, which is not good. It makes it quite more difficult to actually spread. I found that mixing it with sand and actually spreading it by hand works best. The drop spreader works kind of good, but the handheld spreader doesn't work at all. Not if it started to sprout. Then it's actually just easier to spread it by hand. All right, so I'm done seeding. Well, not done. What I want to try is I want to put down half of the seeds below the compost. So now I'm gonna do the compost on top, spread it evenly everywhere, and then I'm gonna take the other half of my grass seeds on top and then rake it in. because some spots are just too low and you'll accidentally just cover it with compost and it won't grow. So I feel like, well, I mean, if I can take half underneath and half on top, then I kind of double down on it. But the pre-germination worked pretty good. The only thing I would redo is I would probably make sure it's not as wet when I'm doing this, let it dry off for a bit, and then really make sure not to let them sprout before you put it out. It makes it so difficult. It just clumps together. I had to go just throw that out by hand. But at the end of the day, if that saves me a lot of days of germination out on the lawn, I'm happy with it. I'll gladly do it. All right, so now I'm just gonna go get composted cow and chicken manure, and I'm using that because I want to amend the soil. I apparently have really hard clay underneath the plant bed, so to be able to break that up long term, then I need to add organic material to the lawn. So I'm gonna try to top dress with organic material as much as I can, but this is like 2, 3, 4 years process, so it's not a quick thing. All right, so I'm just gonna go get the compost, well, the cow manure and chicken manure, and then put everything out and then seed again on top of it. And of course I'm using my Landsy. It makes life so much simpler. I love this thing. All right, so final steps, more grass seeds on top. Well, not more, I used half of what I was supposed to use. So half underneath, then compost, and then half on top. And now I'm just gonna lightly go over everything with the rake, making sure I have good seed to soil contact. And I'm not gonna go over it with a garden roller or anything like that. I usually do, but last year I didn't do it in one area, and it germinated just as well as the other area. So I don't really see a point, and I've been at it all day, so I'm getting pretty tired. So if I don't have to do a step, I'll make any excuse I'll have to. So I'll just rake this, and then we'll water it in, and then we're done. All right, so I raked everything, and hopefully everything is nice and tucked in between some soil. I've been doing renovations, seeding, a lot of years now, and I've never had a single time where I didn't have to fix bare spots. So don't feel bad if some spots have less grass than you wanted. That always happens. It doesn't matter how you do it. That always happens, at least to me. Some areas, some birds eat the seed. You have some washout somewhere. Stuff just happens. So now I'm just gonna water everything in, and then we're done. So it's been about, I don't know, 6 hours effective time on the lawn. So a full renovation of 190 square meters does take a lot of time, and that's not including prep work. All right, so let's get the oscillating sprinkler out, and you don't have to water it that much. I mean, you just need to keep it moist, so about 5-10 minutes. But on hot days like this, you kind of need to keep track of it. You can't let it dry out for too long, but you do that until you see germination. And hopefully with the pre-germination, I should see germination pretty soon. And as soon as I do, I kind of cut back on the watering. I still want to keep it moist. I'm not going to stop watering it, but I'm watering it less. And that's it. So hopefully in the next video I'll make, you can see the results, how it looks, and I'll keep you updated on the new Kentucky bluegrass. If it really did take 8 days to germinate, I planted an area with just the seeds so I can compare with the pre-germination just to see what difference it made. So thank you guys for watching, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.